So I'd like to invite Mr. Kenneth Ashmore, who is a spouse of somebody who had a problem with dementia, and he's going to tell us about his experiences of that. Will you have to come, please?
Good evening. Let me say at the outset, although I'm a carer in this particular meeting, I've had 35 years experience on care home committees, and I've always been involved with older people and the needs of older people in care homes. So I've included some of my comments about homes in relation to the way they're run, and also in relation to the way it affects the carer. My wife has had Alzheimer's for over 8 years, and just recently she's been admitted to a nursing home in Mottram. The reason she's been admitted was she had at that time a infection in her water, and it had such an effect on her which I was totally unaware of with my limited medical experience. It affected her walking and everything else. So it was accepted by one of the GPs in this practice that maybe she should go into a nursing home, at least for the time being. My MO on this was, I didn't want my wife to go in initially, because I felt that to be a carer at home gave her the best possible treatment there is in my wife's case. This was one of the handicaps, having had some experience with care homes. I wasn't detached, as most carers are, who have not had much experience outside. So having to make a decision at the time to put my wife in a nursing home was a massive decision, and wasn't a certain one from my point of view, because immediately she went into the home, I switched my concentration on how she was going to be treated in that particular home, and whether the treatment she was going to get would marry up to what she got at home under my help as a carer. Now, I'm a great believer that the system which the government laid down, that there should be, more people should be looked after in the home, is a good one, provided the support for the carer is there. Now, there's lots of support for carers, and most of it is helpful to them. However, there are incidents whereby, on top of what the carer has to deal with on a day-to-day basis, like I did with my wife for 8 years, that you get administrative problems coming up in relation to social services, the health service and everything else, when the last thing you need is to have battles about the way you're going to fill a form in, produce certain things, and whether in fact the way they lay things out on these things are quite correct. Example, when I had this position of having to put my wife in a nursing home, I was in the position of saying, well, they said, well, if you want any help through the social services in financial support, you will need to have a financial assessment. And I said, well, I'm sorry, but I don't need to have a financial assessment, because a simple reason, I already know the details of where support starts and where it finishes. And I was fortunate enough to have enough money to pay for it myself. At some stage in the future that might change, because it'll be costing me at the moment about £20,000 a year. Not that that worries me in the least, because that's the least of the problems. However, in the case of my wife's sister died of Alzheimer's, and my wife's mother died of Alzheimer's. The problems which threw up in their families, in terms of my sister-in-law, etc., I'd already seen what devastation it made to somebody who wasn't used to it. And therefore the support carers get is vital to any future strategy in relation to dementia. So in this case, As far as the carers are concerned, the subject is dementia and the patients of dementia. But the carers in this element are a problem as well and need to be included in that future strategy. And I've no doubt where the future strategy should lie, that where possible, the support should be given to the carers to such an extent where the sufferer from Alzheimer's or dementia would get the most benefit from it. And this is where we come round to the nursing home or the care home. Care homes are limited to the number of staff they have in dealing with dementia patients, and secondly the quality of the staff. Because of the atrocious wage levels for carers, you sometimes get very poor staff. If you pay peanuts, you get monkeys, the old saying. Now what I find in my experience with care homes, there's always a nucleus of devoted carers in their homes, but are dealing with lots and lots of people. Now over this past 2 years, my wife has been going to the daycare centre for 4 days a week, which allowed me a certain amount of time in the day to do the necessary duties in the home. Not only did it help me as a carer, but it helped me to see that my wife was getting some kind of stimulation by being picked up at morning, going into a day centre with other sufferers, and having a staff ratio of about 1 staff to 3 dementia patients, which would never happen in a nursing home or a care home. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to maintain that as far as possible. I haven't actually given up on that problem because my wife has now recovered from a water infection, and I'm now in the process of deciding whether this nursing home is doing her any good in terms of stimulation and whether she would be better coming home. Even though people say you mustn't consider that because you've got yourself to consider. Well, in that case, I would then like to see, as part of this strategy, more emphasis put on stimulation of dementia and Alzheimer's patients. There is a tendency among staff and people in general to assume that when people have dementia or Alzheimer's, that they have no forms of contact or no sense of communication at all, which isn't true. In my wife's case, she doesn't say my name, but immediately I hold her hand and I go to the nursing home, she knows me. Now, these are things which at the end of the day mean a lot to the individual patient. And I'm sure that where somebody goes into the nursing home and doesn't get that kind of attention and stimulation, that it's to the detriment of the patient. Now I go, as I say, I've been on committees of old people's homes for a long, long time. And when I go, and I still go into them, I'm still connected with them, and I see a row of people in care homes on one side who have some form of dementia, and all the elderly people on the other side of the room, which are perfectly normal, except they're old and infirm in some cases, but they've got the faculties. That in itself is a shame, because there's a certain separation. And anybody who knows the system as far as the medical side is concerned knows full well that the series of stages of dementia and Alzheimer's go down periodically without knowing when that time will be. Some people go down quicker than others. I would say at the moment my wife's in probably the last but one stage, but is certainly fit and certainly healthy and certainly wants to move about. She's been out with me this afternoon in the car, sitting in the shade for half an hour to help her stimulate.